Hi.
Hi, Michael.
So, I don't understand why people have a problem with the idea of multiple genders or sexes.
You guessed it. I'm arguing with him on the fact that there are only two biological sexes, but multiple ways to express your gender. So let's roll the intro.
We solve crimes, I blog about it, and he forgets his pants. I wouldn't hold out too much hope.
Firstly, it confuses me as an appreciator of science. Back in the day when I used to argue all the time with creationists online, it always used to baffle me the ridiculous amount of black and white thinking that these people would employ. But science shows us that the universe is not a black and white place.
First, creationists tend to be overzealous people of faith who tend to see things in only black and white. Secondly, science has opened many avenues of possibilities for advancements in many fields, so I can see your frustration in arguing with these people, but arguing with zealots is usually a dead end anyway, and you're just banging your head against a wall repeatedly, expecting a different result.
It's a crazy, diverse place full of strange and wonderful things that don't always conform to neat little boxes. That's why, for example, the Tree of Life is so complicated and continues to get more complicated the more we discover about the world.
Okay, so you want to talk about science, but you're bringing theology into this with the Tree of Life, which has been studied by Kabbalists and people of the Nordic and other pagan faiths. So either we're having a scientific discussion or we're having a theological discussion. Make up your mind, Michael, make up your mind.
The deeper we look into the philology of these things, the deeper we go, the more we see that the world doesn't fit into tiny, neat little boxes.
You're right, but not completely.
So why is it then that people have such a hard time accepting that maybe, just maybe, our ideas about gender and sex aren't perfect?
Maybe, just maybe, biologically there are only two sexes, but mentally and socially there are multiple ways to express those genders. I don't know, just saying.
That maybe our simplistic binary view of something as complicated as personal identity might not be as cut and dry as we think it is.
Okay, I am beginning to think here that you're getting the biological sex and social identities all screwed up. Let me explain. Okay, Michael, your problem is you're confusing these two things, okay? Your identity, your personal identity, is your personality coupled with the moral compass that your parents instilled in you, coupled with the lessons that you've learned throughout life, what you've learned in school, and what your parents raised you to believe and showed you along the way. This is your personal identity. It has nothing to do with biological sex. Biological sex is whether you're XX or XY. We'll get into gender identities or gender expressions, as I like to call them because it's a little more accurate, a little later on in the video.
How could it be that someone is perfectly willing to accept that the universe is this amazing, beautiful, complex, mysterious place full of grey areas and weird shit that makes no sense, but then as soon as we talk about biological sex, nope, we got that perfectly right and there's only two?
Because nope, they're right and there's only two.
Well, I hate to break it to you, buddy, but you're wrong.
I hate to break it to you, Michael, but nope, I'm right.
First of all, you're ignoring intersex people.
Nope, not ignoring intersex people. They are a chromosomal and genetic anomaly, which I'm going to probably discuss within the next couple of minutes.
Intersex is a catch-all term for people who are born with a biological sex that does not align with the traditional sexual binary.
As you can plainly see, due to the chromosomal makeup, the intersex people are still having binary hormones. They are just in abnormal makeups or combinations within the DNA of their body. So try again, Michael.
And it's not one distinct category either. There are a variety of different biological sexes that can be classed under intersex.
There's four, and they're chromosomal anomalies. I hate using the term, but it's biologically correct. And if you want to learn more about intersex and the chromosomal anomalies, I am going to link a video to Matthew C. in the description. It's a very informative and in-depth video on the subject, and I think you will find it interesting.
It's almost as if it was some sort of, spectrum or something.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
As you get to know me in my videos, you'll realize I don't use dictionary, but I will go to etymology.com to give you the complete history of the word. And here we're looking at spectrum, which is a noun. And we're jumping to this part here, meaning visible band showing the successive colors formed from a beam of light passed through a prism, first recorded in the 1670s. Figurative sense of entire range of something is from 1936. You're trying to say that intersex people are a whole spectrum of other sexes and genders that should be taken into consideration. I got another history meaning for you, bud. Hang in there. Intersex. One having characters of both sexes. 1917 from German intersexy. 1915. See inter in quotes between plus sex. Coined by German-born U.S. geneticist Richard Benedict Goldschmidt, who lived between 1878 and 1958. Intersexual is from 1866 as existing between the sexes pertaining to both sexes, as from 1916 as having both male and female characteristics related to intersexuality. So no, it's not another gender, Michael. It's still between male and female sexes, respectively. Sorry to burst your bubble, bud, but you're using that word wrong.
And did you know that there are more than 2 different karyotypes? A karyotype is a picture of a person's set of chromosomes, and I was always under the impression that these manifest in only 2 ways, XX and XY, male and female. Wrong. The 6 most common ways that these manifest are X, XX, XXY, XY, XYY, and XXXY.
Yeah, I covered that already. You want to get to the point, Michael, or do I have to listen to you drone on a little bit more?
Man, who knew that human biology could be so complicated and not at all black and white?
Who knew that somebody that kept saying they were scientifically minded can be such a backwards thinking idiot?
I've also heard people acknowledge that intersex people exist, but they don't count that as a separate sex.
Because it's living between 2 sexes. Rewind the tape to see the etymology of the word, Mike. Thanks a lot.
I mean, what? What? You acknowledge that there are people who exist whose biology doesn't align with a strict binary, but that doesn't count as a different sex because reasons.
No, it doesn't exist because, I don't know, science maybe?
That's like saying, yes, I know that there are multiple different flavors of chocolate, but the only real flavors are 70% cocoa and almond. All those other ones, they don't count.
Get to the point, Michael. Get to the point. It's around here somewhere.
No, they are all flavors, and they're all as equally as legitimate as each other, and your opinions don't factor in the matter.
You're still talking about chocolate. Can we please get to the point?
Except for orange-flavored chocolate. Fuck that shit.
Ooh, Michael's getting edgy, y'all. Pay attention.
As the great Tim Minchin once said, science adjusts its views based on what's observed. Faith is the denial of observation so that belief can be preserved. And okay, maybe you've only seen one weenie and a few cha-chas in your time, but your personal experience on these matters doesn't trump that of millions of other people and, science.
First of all, that is a loose interpretation of the scientific method, and science does change its conclusions after correlating evidence says that the theory people have been trying to disprove has been disproven. Otherwise, the theory becomes law. And in biology, as long as biology doesn't change, neither does the fact that there are weenies, as you put it, and there are cha-chas, that you put it. So please, get your head out of your ass and start paying attention to the science that you so keep clinging to ever so loosely.
Fact is, there are people who are born that do not conform to the strict binary of biological sex and gender that you are so desperate to cling to.
Skip. Like a broken record, there are only 2 biological sexes, but multiple ways to express your gender.
And it seems ludicrous to me that one would hear this information and then continue to believe there are only two sexes. Blind faith at its worst. Secondly, it confuses me as a lover of language.
It's not blind faith. So, oh, and you're calling yourself a lover of language. This part of the video ought to be interesting. By the way, for those of you who don't know, I'm the daughter of an English major.
Constant objections I often hear are things like, these people are just making up a bunch of words.
Because they are making up a bunch of words.
They're using words how they're not supposed to be used. 64 pronouns, that's too many!
64 pronouns! That's absolutely ludicrous!
If we allow this to happen, what's going to stop people from identifying as tractors and fairies and dragons and shit?
So I take it you haven't been introduced yet to Otherkin, Michael, because those are your dragons and fairies and shit. Just figured I'd add that in.
And these are, of course, super silly objections.
No, they're not super silly objections. Yes, languages do morph and they change over time, but they do so naturally to fit the times. Words are just not interjected in there for no reason, and then laws are not put in place to force people to use those laws. Z, zir, zim, zit, zish, ish, e, whatever the hell the goddamn pronouns are, do not fit into an English language grammatically. And let's not even get started into how the other languages would need to be completely rewritten in order to agree with these new and made up pronouns. And I'm talking about the Germanic, the Yiddish, and the Latin languages, who were not created to fit any new pronouns into them. I'm not even going to get started on that.
For one, all words are made up. There are no words that exist as omnipresent beings outside the existence of humanity. Words exist because of us.
Every word originated through necessity. Did they originate through imitation? Possibly. Through just plucking it out of thin air? I don't think so. We can also trace the beginnings of language back to before Egyptian times. Since recorded history, there has been some sort of alphabet established, some sort of words that make up a language in order to describe the plight of the people. Even before we started writing history down in books, there were cave paintings that depicted what went on during the day. This in itself is a type of language. Was it made up? We won't know because we can't go back and ask those people. But the language does evolve, but the meaning and the origin of the words often do not. And if the origin or the meaning ever changes, that's what etymology is for, to record and track those changes.
So what is wrong with making up some new words to describe new things that we don't yet have words for?
If you can find some basis in another language as to the reason as to why these words should exist scientifically and from an etymological point of view, then yes, we can put these words into our language and they should be able to flow and agree with verbs that we also use in a grammatical sense. If you cannot find some etymological reason why that these words should exist, and they should not exist in any language. Do I have a problem using them? Only if there are laws making me use them, because that is policing the way I think and what I say, and that is completely unacceptable.
As we learn and discover more about the world, we're going to need new words to describe those new things that we discover. I don't see people complaining about scientists always making up new words to describe new species of animals.
The new genus, species, and Latin origin name for things that have been discovered biologically through science have a certain system that they need to go through in order for them to be classified and named with these Latin languages. Otherwise, the actual common name, yeah, it's made up according to something whimsical. But you have to first pick a genus, a species, and then the base Latin name for this new organism or plant.
But the words aren't coming about naturally, man. Who cares? If there is a thing that needs a word to describe it, then why not make up a new word for that thing?
Having already previously said something about how words come to be, I will say this. I don't have a problem using new words that have evolved naturally through the language. It's when you make ordinances like the one in New York fining people for not using those words, or C-16 in Canada, when you also cite and fine people for not using those words, is when I start having an issue with it. You can't make people use the words. You cannot.
Why does it matter if it hasn't come about through years of language evolution or some
Just because you're repeating yourself doesn't mean I have to repeat it. And if you want to hear my very same answer, just rewind the tape.
bullshit? And why should it matter if there's dozens of new pronouns? Oh no, dozens of new words to describe dozens of new things. Oh, the humanities!
Just go back previously in my video where I explain why a lot of these pronouns will not be or cannot be fully integrated into the English language, much less the other languages.
It all smacks to me of people complaining about something that has absolutely no effect on them. Different people who are different from you, who want to do life differently from you, and that offends some people for some reason.
Everybody goes their own way. Everybody has their path to tread. Everybody has their way of living and the way they want to live their life. The problem comes when you try and start shoving your way of life down other people's throats. That's where the resistance comes in. That's when the problems start.
Why does it matter to you so much if a person doesn't conform to the rigid gender identifiers that are ingrained to us from birth by a culture that is obsessed with cramming people into tiny little boxes of conformity?
For the perfect depiction of tiny little boxes of conformity, see any indoctrinational society. Cuba, World War II era Germany under Hitler as he was indoctrinating the youth. Those are fitting people into small little boxes, making them fit a certain way and brainwashing them until they think that particular way. The Western society isn't made that way. Everybody is allowed to go their own way and do their own thing, and nobody has any problems with anybody else. It's when you try and cram your shit down other people's throats and try to make other people do what you want them to is when the resistance comes. It's when the hatred starts, it's when the arguments start, it's when the yelling starts, and it's when the fighting begins.
Why does it matter to you if someone wants to be addressed as G, or Ni, or V, or Spivak? I mean, I can understand not wanting to misgender people, not that that's what these motherfuckers care about, but why does it matter to you if someone self-identifies as that? It's like the most ridiculous cis privilege to be lucky enough to be born cis and then expect everyone else to conform to that.
This may be anecdotal, but I have yet to meet online or in person a true transgender person that gets all bent to hell when you misgender them. And as far as the ones that I have met online, they don't believe in these made-up pronouns either. It's these trans-trenders that you keep defending, Michael, that want us to use these pronouns that didn't exist until they made them up all of a sudden and put them on Tumblr and started distributing them as actual parts of the language, which they are not. I said I was going to hit on gender expression, so here I am. I am female. Most people would consider me a cis female. Most of the things I am interested are decidedly male. Football, other contact sports of that nature. I used to play with Star Wars toys. I read comic books, which is, more guys read those than females. I'm more interested in guy stuff than girl stuff. That doesn't make me a demi whatever. I'm a tomboy. That's what I am. That's my gender expression. There are effeminate males, just as there are females that lean a little more toward all the guy stuff. It doesn't make you a completely different gender. It just means you're expressing your gender in a different way. All these genders, all these made-up genders are completely irrelevant in my opinion because you can only be male or female, but you can express yourself in so many different ways. And, your personality is as different as the snowflakes that fall in the wintertime. Your personality is as different as the many different fingerprints on everybody's hands all across the world. There are many ways to express who you are and what you are sexually and gender-wise. You don't have to find a title. You don't have to make up a gender. Who you are is who you are. Your sexual orientation is either gay, lesbian, bisexual, or straight. You don't have to convolute them, turn them around, turn them inside out, turn them upside down, and turn them into different genders. They're not different genders, they're different sexual preferences. And no, you're not bigoted if you prefer to date a certain type of person. Everybody has these types of people that they're attracted to. It has nothing to do with bigotry or hatred. They're just simple preferences. And trying to blow these preferences and these gender expressions out of proportion is absolutely ludicrous and ridiculous. He keeps being a condescending and rambling and repetitive cunt, so I'm just going to end it here. One of these days I'll make it through one of his videos and put the whole thing on here, but that would probably be an hour-long ordeal, seeing how I keep interrupting his ass through his stupidity. He says he is a science-minded individual, but he keeps going off the rails and off the scientific rails, so to speak, in order to defend something that doesn't exist. Non-binary does not exist. Intersex, the word itself, means between sexes, which means it knows that there are two sexes, and it's in between those sexes. As far as intersex people are concerned, and I hate using terms like this because they sound derogatory, clinical, and cold, intersex people are genetic anomalies. They are birth defects. They are something that doesn't happen, and it isn't normal in society. If intersex people were normal, they would be more prevalent in the population, and so would transgender people. The main problem with people like Michael and people like Riley and other people like that is they keep pushing their narrative to the point where real transgender people and intersex people who just want to integrate into society normally and not be noticed become the marginalized people that are pushed aside. They become the people that are not taken seriously when they walk into doctors' offices for clinical, medical, and psychiatric help because of what is going on in society. They are working against the very people they're trying to help, and this is what annoys me to no end. And that's it for the video. If you liked it, well, you know where the like button is. Hit that for me, please. If you want to see more, just subscribe to my channel. If you want to be notified every time I upload a video, that's what that little bell next to the subscribe channel is for. And don't forget to check out the videos that I have linked over here in the end card. Until next time, my fellow shitlords, skeptics, and lover of words, be skeptical, believe nothing, and question everything.